Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. We're on the road again. Here is San Francisco, the Fairmont Hotel, and it's interesting, Dave. It's called the Bentley Room, so we're honored to be with you. We're honored to be back with you. Yeah, the show is called the Car Department because in the real world, we have all these departments. We've got the sports department, the candy department, and now we have the car department. Our flagship station, one of the great radio stations in America, KHTS out of Santa Clarita, California, 12:20 a.m. You can listen on the hometownstation.com and on the best radio app in America. And you demonstrated that app at dinner Saturday night. All you do is go to the App Store, put in KHTS, and 12:20 a.m. pop up.
Easy as that, Coach.
And you can listen to our show. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just want to get as sincere as I can and as dramatic as I can for a moment. This is a young man who started literally with nothing in life. His dad left the home when he was 9 years old. His mom had to raise three wonderful boys. At 14 years old, he takes his first job. You're going to hear about it in a second. In fact, you're going to hear about his life today on the show we call the Car Department. And then at the end of the show, we're going to talk about how to buy your first car, because you know what? I need to buy a car for one of my grandkids. It's going to be his first car, so stay tuned for that. How to buy your first car here on the Car Department. So this young man, who now is in his later 30s, started off, as I said, back in New Jersey. And incidentally, big shout out to Dina if you're listening. Big shout, Judy, if you're listening back on the East Coast somewhere. Roberta, Phil, I know we got such a big following here in Southern California. All right, so this life story is about overcoming no. It's about overcoming incredible odds. It's about overcoming cancer. It's about overcoming everything that can almost be bad in your life. And not only did he survive, he became one of the largest car dealers in the United States. But Dave Cantin, welcome to your show. It's called the Car Department. It's your show. I'm just the tag along here. So let's start with you're age 14 and you decide that you want to go and get a job. And start the story.
Well, at 14 years old, you have an option. You can hang out with two different crowds. The crowd that will tend to lead you in the wrong direction, and the crowd that you make the decision yourself to do the right move. And I want everyone to try to vision this as I tell this story. So, freshman year in high school, I come home from school one day, and I had that option of which crew to hang out with or what decision to make. I chose the decision to put on a suit and tie and walk to the mall, which is about a 30-minute walk from my house. And to get there, I had to walk through a sod field that you could just imagine what was on this field that helps sod grow, cross over a major highway, walk along a overpass and down a huge hill. Took me roughly about 45 minutes to an hour, and I got to the mall probably about 4:30 on this day. I'll remember it for the rest of my life. And I scouted out a few department stores of where I thought would be best for me to apply for a job. And
you happen to pick out one of the most successful retailers in the United States as your first job, and you scout it out, and then you walk in. Where did you get the money to buy the suit? Did you have a suit now?
I tell you, so when I was first scouting out, I did not. I had to go then and get my first suit. I'll never forget buying that first suit. I had no idea how to match a tie or a suit together. But just to get back to my story, so from walking through this sod field, you could just imagine what I had on my brand new dress shoes. So I'll never forget wiping my dress shoes on the curbs, cleaning them, before I entered into this department store. Some of you know this department store as Nordstrom's. That day I looked at it as Cantin's department store. I acted as if before I walked in there, the department store had my name and it was mine.
At 14?
At 14.
Wow.
So I walk into this beautiful department store, and I just took a first glance around me, and I walked right into the women's shoe department. Stay with me and try to vision this. Here I am, 14 years old, suit and tie. I was there already prior, a few weeks back, filling out an application, and I never heard back. So this is what determined me that day to get up, change into a suit, walk in there, had my head up high, and I'll never forget a lady by the name of Elaine. And this story is what helped guide me and inspire me to where I am today. So I walk up to this lady, Elaine, and I said, "Excuse me, ma'am, can you help me?" And she said, "Sure, young man, how can I help you?" And I said, "Well, I was here 2 weeks ago, and I applied for a job, and I never heard back." And she says, "Well, I'm so sorry, but can you take this application, bring it home, and come back?" And to me, that was saying no. I paused for about 2 seconds. I was a little scared, and I looked at her right in her eyes. And I just said, "No, could I have a pen? I'm going to fill it out right now. And I would really like the opportunity for an interview today." And I went in and I elaborated and I told her I just walked 45 minutes to an hour, what I had to go through to get here. Transportation was my own 2 feet. Please help me. I filled out the application. I think I waited a good 90 minutes for Elaine to come back over and grab me from one of the couches. And she said, "Okay, let's interview." And she looked at me and she looked in my eyes. And here was this very successful woman that to me was extremely well put together, very stern, very well dressed, came off extremely educated. And she looked at me and she said, "Why should I hire you?" Now here I am, 14 years old. I didn't have an answer. I froze. Something then within a minute came out. And I looked at her in her eyes with this voice of encouragement. And I think it was the moment that broke my silence for life. It's what helped get me to where I am today. Because I looked at her in her eyes and I said, "Elaine," I called her by her first name. I said, "I will be the first one in. I will be the last one out. I will dedicate everything I have towards this job. I don't call out. Even if I'm sick, if I'm not too sick, I will be here." I said, "I'm the guy for this job. Give me the opportunity." And she says, "We don't hire on the spot," and froze. And 10 seconds later, put her hand out and said, "You're hired."
Now, tell our audience, you're listening to the car department on KHTS, our flagship station. We're up here in San Francisco at the Fairmont Hotel in the Bentley Room, and we're traveling around the country doing this show because we think you would like it. But what department did you make the application for? This is what I don't understand.
Well, I've always had a fetish for shoes. Never women's, always men's, obviously, but it was the women's shoe department of Nordstrom's. And
you get the job, and you're 14.
I get the job. I'm working there just about 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday. I would come home from school every day while my friends were hopping on their BMXs and skateboards, and I was putting a suit and tie on. And at a young age of 14, I acted as if every day as I walked through that sod farm.
All right, I'm going to throw a test at you. What's the most popular women's shoe at Nordstrom? Nines? What was the name of it? Well, give me a shoe name.
In my day, I think it was Via Spiga.
Via Spiga. Oh, my God. So it's an amazing story. You stay there for 4 years. Now you're 18 years old, and what happens next?
Well, I didn't have the opportunity to go to college. To be brutally honest with you, Coach, financially, we couldn't afford to send me to college, and I didn't have the ability to go to college. And if I focused probably a little bit more during school, maybe I could have got those scholarships, but I didn't. And I couldn't sit back and feel bad for myself. At 18 years old, after working for the last 4 years and loving the passion for work, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm going to get into this shortly and tell you, there's a difference between a job and a career, and I don't think I've ever had a job. I think everything to me was a career.
We talked about it the other day. To me, the difference between a job and career is people who have a job go, "God, I can't wait till it's Friday." People who want a life, who want a career, who want to make something themselves, they say, I can't wait till Monday. I always thought myself that weekends were a waste of time. I never got weekends. Why did we have weekends? Let's just keep going. Anyway, we're talking to Dave Cantin. He is the star of the show. I'm the coach, Coach Ron Tuning, and I'm drawing him out today about his story, about his life story, because a word, a phrase, an idea, somebody out there is struggling right now. Somebody out there, Dave, can't understand or overcome the word no. Somebody out there is fighting a horrible disease. Somebody out there is suffering. You've been through all of this stuff.
Coach, let's talk about no. How many times in your life do you have to face hearing the word no? At 18 years old, obviously not making a decision to go to college, I went through, I believe it was the day after graduation. I wasted no time. I got the local paper in my community. I think it was the Asbury Park Press in Monmouth County, New Jersey. Shout out to everybody there. But I open up the Asbury Park Press, go right to jobs wanted. And I remember the ad as if it was yesterday. It was, you make your own paycheck. And I think that's all it had to say. You know, help wanted, experience only. You make your own paycheck. So I knew I could make my own paycheck, but the experience I didn't have.
Right. You had no experience selling cars. You had experience selling shoes.
So I call up the general manager there, who, I will say, Greg Cavino. He was a mentor to me and someone who has inspired me my entire life. And I owe a great thanks to him, because without him, I wouldn't have had the proper guidance to get to the next journey.
But you were open to it. Let me just pause here for a second. We all experience that one person or two people or three people that come into our lives. Sometimes we don't understand why they're there. Sometimes they're hard on us. Sometimes it's a teacher, a coach. Sometimes it's somebody we don't even know what their role is, but they make a difference in our lives. Somehow you were open to listen. Somehow this was your time to grow.
Coach, it was more than that, because at 18 years old, when I called up Greg Cavino and I said, I just saw your ad in a paper. I don't have the experience, but I have a lot more to offer than anybody else in your store.
Wow.
And I said, just give me 5 minutes. It's a win-win. I said, just give me 5 minutes of your time. So I remember driving into the dealership and waiting 35, 40 minutes for the interview. And I remember watching him stare at me from in the showroom, almost like, okay, I got to waste time and interview this young kid. Obviously, it was one of the most successful dealerships in the state. You couldn't go in there with no experience. I'm staring at 30 to 40 older people, mostly double my age.
And you got a little baby face to begin with, which is a cheap plug for all your videos that are coming out, your book. A lot of stuff's coming out on the car department with Dave Cantin, so that's a little tease for the future. But you got this little baby face, and now he calls you in. What happens in the interview?
So he almost says to me like Elaine did, "Why should I hire you?" And I said to him, "You're going to hire me because I'm going to be your right-hand man pretty shortly. And I'm going to come in first, and I'm going to leave last, and I'm going to bring the most to the table that any other employee could bring. I don't want people to look at me for my age. I want people to respect me for what I could bring." And I said, just give me the opportunity. Allow me the opportunity to work side by side and train, because I know I could be good at this. And your ad said you make your paycheck. So allow me to make my paycheck. And he shook my hand on the spot and gave me that opportunity. And that's where we all began. That's what began the 6 days a week, the open to close. And I'll tell you, as a car salesman, look, God bless all you, because the hours are long. You're with that group and that dealership more than you're with your family. But, at 18 years old, I made a decision. And the decision wasn't to be a great car salesman. The decision was to be a good people person. The decision was to really find out what's within you and bring it out and really help people. And I think I was so successful because I never put the sale first. I always put the consumer first. People have to love who you are. When you sell products today, you're not selling a product, you're selling yourself. I don't care if it's homes, if it's shoes, if it's cars, you're selling yourself. And later on in this, I'll go into a few examples that everyone listening could elaborate to, could kind of understand. But you have to sell yourself.
I like. Yes, I would agree with that. If a salesperson creates an experience, so you must have been very good at creating the want to buy from you and creating that experience where somebody enjoyed spending time with you.
I'll tell you, look, I was inspired by a lot of great people around me. The one thing I was always good at was listening and trying to learn a little bit from everybody. But at a very short age, a very short time frame, at a young age of 18, I didn't take no for an answer. And, when most people take 3 to 6 months to train and really to become a good salesman and learn the product and understand the facility that you're selling the cars in and be able to give them that well-rounded, great experience that every consumer deserves, I think I did it in like 2 weeks.
All right, let's move along. So you're 18, now you're 21, and you're one of the top car salespeople in the United States of America. What happens at 21?
Well, I'll tell you, in between that 18 and 21, I sold cars. I learned different departments, finance manager, sales manager. I learned how to structure deals, and I never wanted to take no for an answer, and I kept wanting to grow. I never forget this day at 21, I walk into my mentor's office, Greg Covino, and I said, Greg, the only job left here is yours. And I'm not going to do that. So it's time that we part ways and we allow this friendship to grow in other ways.
You're being a little humble. I mean, people know who you are now. And you're sought after. 8 or 9 car dealers are calling you, offering you all kinds of deals. What happens now with this conversation with Greg?
Well, so, he really did the right thing, kind of gave you that, coach to, the pat on the ass and say, go out there and get them, make it happen. And, he taught me a lot, and, I've learned so much from him, and I was able to take it out there and grow and really become better. And I did my homework of where I should go within the state and where would best be my best fit. And I met another great mentor and a gentleman that I was with for 15 and a half years, one of the most sincere people I've ever met in my entire life, basically a father figure. Give him the best shot out there possibly is. Brad Benson, retired left tackle from the New York Giants.
Was he bigger than me?
He's bigger than you. He is. And
so you leave the dealership and go to another dealership?
I leave the dealership. I go out there and I interview to work for Brad at his Hyundai Mitsubishi dealership. And, this is in a very rural area, 15, 20 miles off the nearest turnpike or parkway entrance, woods surrounding us on all 4 sides of the dealership. You could basically tiptoe across the highway any time of the day. It was just a small family-owned and operated store. We sold 75 to 100 cars a month, and it had probably 50 to 60 people on staff. And I went in there as I was hired as the general manager at a dealership to operate the departments.
Now you're the GM at 21 years old.
I'm the GM at 21 years old, and we. First, the thing that we do when we go in there is I just looked at the process. I looked at the people. And this was a dealership, in my eyes, that was underperforming.
Are you going to start the story where you told me a couple of weeks ago what you did?
This is
the 56 people that
this is the time where we look at everybody in the eyes, and this is after I personally introduced myself to everybody there. And please don't take this the wrong way, but my first meeting with the entire staff was I looked everybody in the eyes and I said, I have good news and bad news.
The good news is you're listening to the car department with Dave Cantin. I'm your coach, Coach Ron Tony. We're listening to his life story because to me it's so motivating. He's going to say something today that might affect your life, that could actually change your life. So keep listening on KHTS 1220 AM here. So you call, there's 56 employees. You call them all in. You're 21 years old. What did you say to them?
I call every one of them in, and this is after introducing myself to everybody. And I said, ladies and gentlemen, I have good news and bad news. I said, the bad news is everybody's fired. The good news is I'm taking applications effective immediately. And I interviewed every single one of those 56 people, spent 20 to 30 minutes with everybody, and more than 50, maybe 55 to 60% stayed, the rest left, and we fulfilled those positions. And when we come back, I'm going to tell you what happened from there, because the story is amazing. The people behind the story are amazing, and it takes a team to build what we build. And you have to be inspired. You have to really know who you are on the inside, because until you know who you are, You can never go out there and develop and be the best you could be. And what I did was we didn't just sell cars. We didn't just deliver a process. We helped everyone understand who they are. Part of that is motivating. Part of that is training. Part of that is building an experience that surrounds the consumer. And there wasn't a day that went by that a consumer wouldn't walk into our showroom and their first thing they would say is, wow, what's going on here? And that's part of the experience, building that aurora in your showroom.
Well,
building that atmosphere.
You're skipping a few things there. Like
I'm skipping a lot. We're going to get back to that.
Yeah, we're going to get back. Dave Cantin is his name. The show is called The Car Department here. We're originating out our flagship station, KHTS, 1220 AM. We're going to come back. What he's going to tell you is he took this little mom and pop dealership and turned it into one of the largest car dealerships in the world. We're going to find out how he did that. We're also going to find out about something that happened to him at age 30 and how that tragedy, well, you'll hear about it. We'll be right back on the Car Department.